Hey guys, so you're ready to buy your first high-end watch. I'm gonna equip you today with the proper tools and the proper information to actually start buying from a dealer, okay? Especially if you don't trust buying from a private seller. We're gonna dive into that information today. There's a lot of distrust in the industry of watches towards dealers and towards buying your first watch. There's a lot of people that are afraid of buying secondhand watches because of the lack of information they have and maybe because of horror stories they heard. Today we're going to dive in the positives and in the negatives of buying with secondhand dealers, and that includes myself. If you don't know me, I'm Chris. I'm the Time Merchants owner. We're actually dealing with secondhand watches, a bit of luxury, and a lot of Rolex parts and any watch parts. I wanted to make this video for a very long time, discussing about everything that has to do with watches, everything that has to do with dealers, the questions you have. Today I'm going to talk about the positives and negatives of dealing with the secondhand dealer. Obviously there's a lot of positives, there's a lot of negatives as well. You just gotta choose the right person. I hope you're gonna be able to choose wisely and choose with good faith. We're not here to screw anyone. There's a lot of people out there that are willing to do it, and we're gonna talk about that as well. I've been in the industry for roughly 25 years, more or less. I started collecting when I was a kid, and a lot has changed from me going to a flea market to today, working with the internet, working with trust. People are wiring us huge amounts of money or sending us e-transfers for Canadians, and they're trusting us to be legitimate. You have to be very careful as well who you're dealing with, and there's many ways to buy watches and there's many ways to sell watches as well, and to whom you're going to sell your watch. The one thing that's very, very important in this industry is knowing who you're dealing with. If the person is not willing, first of all, to take contact with you, if you're buying online or if you're buying on a private group or an open group online, if you're in any doubt, just giving them a call. I'd say like 99% of proper dealers are gonna give you their numbers on the spot. They're not gonna be shady. They're not gonna disappear in any way. And if you feel like they're giving you a phone number that doesn't belong to their location, obviously that's something really wrong. But that's the first encounter. A lot of people call me and they're like, do you have a store? Even though my store address is on Instagram, it's on the website, it's on Google, so you can look me up, you can always check the reviews. And a lot of dealers also have private reviews on forums, so you can check their name and they're gonna appear right there. So first, always check who they are, and you have to make sure that you are doing your due diligence with this. A lot of people are just gonna buy blindly, and I caught a lot of ads online where people are gonna ask maybe 30 to 40% less on an item, which is very attractive, and I'm gonna contact people. And what happens in that case is that you kind of have a discussion back and forth, and you catch them with lies, or you tell them, hey, you know, I want to buy the thing, and they start up with stories. As soon as the price is too good, there's stories that go with those, you're most probably getting into a scam or a scheme of trying to rob you of your money. So that's the first thing. Do dealers do that? More or less. I've seen dealers that are a bit shady, but we're gonna get into that very soon. The next topic is knowing what you want, okay? A lot of people tell me, what should I pay for a watch? They don't really make the difference between a good watch and a bad watch. What I mean bad, has it been polished? Has it been serviced? Is it as is? And I'm gonna get into that very soon about Japan. Has it been in any way, the history, has it been stolen? You don't know everything that's going on behind the scenes. You only see a picture of a watch down the road. That's one thing that's very important as well, is to actually ask all those questions to dealers. For example, I'm being asked all the time, is the dial original? Has it been touched up? Has it been serviced? Obviously, if a watch, I'll give you an example. I have here Longines, okay? I think this one is a 2020, 2021. It's rather new. Obviously, it's working perfectly. It hasn't been worn much. There's no reason to service such a watch. I have a time grapher behind me at all times. If there's anything, I check it out and we do the proper adjustments. I'm not gonna go too much into the details, but if the watch works perfectly, there's no reason for me to actually repair it. Don't fix what's not broken. Obviously, if it's a vintage watch, even though it shows or presents very well on the time grapher, I'm still gonna do a service. I'm still gonna check it out just to make sure that all the oils are not dried up or anything. And that's what I'm getting with Japan. Okay, a lot of people that I know are buying from Japan. Japanese people are extremely honest. They're not gonna lie to you. If there's any problem, they're gonna reimburse you. They're not gonna create too many problems. I even bought camera lenses. I've bought watches. But in general, if you're buying a watch that's more than 5 or 10 years old from Japan, you have to expect to service the watch, or you have to expect some kind of a trouble down the road, because those watches are being sold as is. So a lot of dealers are selling them on a consignment basis. Therefore, they're not checking anything. They're just taking the pictures and passing it on. You're going to see a bit of dirt. You're going to see straps that are worn. That's a sign that the watch most probably hasn't been verified in any way. And that's what you need to know when it comes to certain dealers that do a lot of volume, but they're going to sell you a watch cheaper, but you're gonna take on your end the cost and factor in the cost of repairs. That's very important. Next topic, you're gonna see sometimes on eBay or Chrono24 the same watch listed multiple times with the same pictures, different sellers, different price points, and you're asking yourself what's going on. You're gonna have a dealer that has a private B2B type of website. I'll give you an example. A two-door Black Bay Panda is going to be listed at 3,500 US. It's going to be listed at that, and then those guys are going to take the pictures of that website, list them on eBay, list it on different platforms, and there's different guys that are doing the same thing. They all want to make maybe $200-300 on the watch, okay? So they're gonna bump the price, factor in the eBay fees, factor in the shipping costs. A lot of Japanese dealers are including shipping, and they don't own the watch. That becomes a bit of a problem, because although they're gonna take the returns no problem, they don't own the watch, so you don't know what you're buying directly from them. Everything that you see on my website I own, and a lot of dealers are very proud to say, hey, that's my inventory, you know, it's paid for, it's mine. Do I do consignments? I have a few watches that are not mine personally, but they're still physically in the store, so I'm being fully responsible towards the customer that actually left the watch with me. What that means is that, let's say, have a watch, I'm losing it, okay, or something happens, I'm gonna have to pay my customer in case anything happens. Same thing towards the buying customer. If there's anything that happens with the watch in transit, I have to pay for the watch. Make sure that the dealers own the watches they're selling you. If you see the same picture, and I have seen that before, where my pictures ended up on eBay with guys that had 5,000, 8,000 items on eBay, and I had a list of my own ads on their own eBay site. They're just trying to make a buck. It's okay, it's fine. Obviously, we report them, they remove the ads, but it just happens to so many other dealers where people are trying to sell stuff that they don't own. Going to the US, you're gonna see a lot of dealers in the US listing brand new Rolexes, APs, Pateks of all sorts, with, I'd say, generic pictures, most of them. What happens is that they're gonna try and do the bait and switch type of deal, or they're gonna try to sell you a watch that they don't own, and we're going back to selling a watch that's not what you're actually buying, or that's actually listed. These dealers, they don't mean any harm. Same thing, they just want to make a buck, but it's maybe not the best way of doing business, because they don't own the watch. If I have this watch and you ask me, hey, are there any scratches on the case, I'll tell you. I can take pictures, you can see them. If you have a million questions, I'm gonna answer them, and normally with a few pictures you can see anything that the watch is. When you buy on a platform like Chrono24, problem is they did allow people to use generic pictures for a very long time. Now they're starting to catch on, I think, for the past maybe year. they started penalizing people who are actually not owning the watches. So if you're not able to fulfill the shipment within, I think, 7, 8, 10 days, I don't know exactly the rule, I'm not on that platform, but in general, Chrono24 is going to catch on to those people and they're going to make them pay the full amount of the sale fees. So let's say if it was a $100,000 watch, maybe the guy is going to have to pay $5,000, which is a huge amount of money. If you don't own the watch, basically you're just throwing down the drain $5,000, which is a lot of money. So if you don't own the watch, it becomes a problem to the customer. I've read over the years many unhappy customers in the States or everywhere buying on Chrono24 stating, hey, you know what, I ordered a watch, it was supposed to be a 2018, ended up being a 2013, still with box and papers, but it wasn't mint as advertised. What that means is that one guy sold you a watch that was advertised as a 2018. He couldn't find one that was cheap enough where he was making money, so he actually shipped you one that was a different year, and most probably he never even saw the watch. He paid a dealer with his money, had him ship you the watch, and then, you know, the horror story happens or begins. So again, your due diligence as the person for pictures, ask them if they have the watch. Basics of the basics. It's normal to actually do something that's legitimate for yourself. It's your own money. Even if you think you're protected by Chrono24, if you read online, there's a lot of horror stories with Chrono24 as well, for the fact that they're not on par with the standards of, you know, protecting customers both ways, either sellers or buyers, and that becomes a bit of a problem when you're buying on that platform. Next topic is very important to me because a lot of groups appeared over the past maybe 5 to 10 years. Some of them are really huge with almost, I think, 1 million subscribers or partners in the group on Marketplace or WhatsApp or whatnot. Some groups are completely fake. So I've seen groups where it's a vintage watch group or whatnot, and everything that's listed there is way underpriced. Most probably it's groups that are part of maybe Asia or India. Most probably it's a bunch of guys that are just grouping in and making fake accounts and reeling you in into thinking that those watches are for sale. You're gonna email or whatever, you're gonna transfer the money with Wise, with PayPal, with whatever. And what happens is that you're gonna get scammed of maybe hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars. So you have to be making sure that the group is not fake. The next thing is you're gonna have a lot of groups that are really legitimate. I'm thinking of Moda, I'm thinking of Canada Watch Club. There's a few Canadian watch clubs out there. Or on those groups, if you're part of them, you're normally going to have a vouch for certain dealers or certain sellers or buyers, and you're going to make sure that basically when you're buying from them, you're going to say, hey, I have this guy that I'm going to try to deal with. I'm the buyer. It's for an amount of 10, 20, 30, 50,000, whatever, it doesn't matter. It could be even $500. It doesn't matter at all the amount. And people are going to start vouching, saying, hey, I know the guy. And vouching means in general that everyone's gonna put in some money if you're actually losing the money and if it became a fraud. So everyone that's part of the vouch system is going to pitch in. If there's 80 people, there was a transaction of $8,000, so it's gonna be $100 each. They're gonna cover you in the transaction. Normally there's never a problem. Have we ever seen problems? Yes, but most probably it's going to be something very generic. Oh, the hand is not lined up, the watch stopped working, or, you know, little things like that, and it might create a bit of a problem, a bit of a history, but not too much. The vouching system, if a lot of people don't understand, is that I'm going to vouch for you as well as you're going to vouch for me down the road, and it all becomes a protective system where everyone protects each other. So it's not I'm vouching for you and you're not vouching for me. It's a give and take type of system. In any case, whenever there's a problem, no one's going to lose their name. If there's anything, if something happened in transit, if there's a problem with insurance or whatnot, you're covered in general, okay? There's not a 100% guarantee, but at least, you know, the groups are very good in that way. A lot of dealers are going to charge taxes and everything. and a lot of people don't want to pay taxes, so that's why they prefer dealing on those groups. Obviously, I'm not competitive with any type of person on a group if I'm 15% more expensive, for example in Quebec, where I have to charge 15% extra tax. And obviously I cannot absorb the 15% when the margins are pretty small and making a few $100s. Speaking of margins, you have to understand that the harder the watch, the smaller the margin. If you come to me with a Batman, a Pepsi, a Daytona, an Audemars Piguet, a Royal Oak, obviously, you know, we're gonna work with something like 2 to about 6-7% at most. And in many cases I have dealers that have calls for them. A call means that they have a buyer for that watch, so in that term we're normally going to split the profit. I have the guy who actually sells the watch, he has the buyer on the other end, so we split a small margin in between. Sometimes I don't take anything, just because if the dealer is just buying the watch and he's making like $300 to $500, I'm not gonna start gouging and say, hey, where's my $100? There's no point, you know. So that's how I work. A lot of dealers out there, they necessarily need to make money every time. I don't really care. I'm always thinking on the long term. Other dealers are just thinking in the moment. Therefore, that's why I always have an inventory right now that has to do more with what my passion is. Would I like to have a bunch of Datjusts and Submariners? Maybe, but it's kind of defeating the whole purpose of having a watch store. I'm not a Rolex store or an AP store. A lot of dealers are going to be very, very mainstream. What I mean by that is that you're going to see the same 5-10 different brands that are going to fit in what they always have. Okay, so they're always going to have modern Rolexes, mostly sports Rolexes, or a lot of Datjusts. Then you're going to see APs, X, and maybe a few Omegas, and even their Omega is not so much of a really easy sell right now. Therefore, I kind of like to go against those trends, but it doesn't mean that I don't have access to modern watches. In terms of margins, the least sellable watches are normally going to be negotiated very hard between dealers, including very big dealers that I've heard about. I'm not going to name anyone, where let's say you're going to see a watch listed for $500,000 or for $75,000. Could be anything. And what they're listed at and what we're actually buying them for is a huge difference. For example, I'm buying a Carl F. Bucherer, I think, on Monday, and the watch is solid gold. It's a really cool watch. It's roughly about 10 years old, but the problem is the customers are not really aware of that market. And what that creates is that we, like dealers who actually know about the brand, who actually like the brand, I have a lot of respect for Carl F. Bucherer. I have one right here. What's cool is that they do make amazing watches. They do make crazy complicated, but they're not holding their value. So what you see online, if you see a watch for over $10,000, I might be buying it for 40 or 50% less. Why? Because I'm gonna sell it as well for a lot less than what it's listed for on Chrono24 or on eBay or any other platform. Because if you want to sell that watch, it's going to take you a long time if you want to maximize. But since we are a smaller dealer, or a lot of dealers out there, they're holding them for 2-3 years, they see it doesn't sell, they try to sell it, the buyers are not aware of the quality of the brand, then it's either going to be a hit or a miss. It's going to be either a hit in terms of we're going to make profit, sometimes more than we were expecting, or a miss in terms of, hey, you know, no one was interested for 6 months, a year, 2 years, and I don't like to hold watches for 2 years. It's pretty bad, you know, as a turnover. So ideally, we're a business, we try to turn those watches pretty fast. Even if we make $500, $300 on top of what we paid for them, if we have the buyer, we're gonna let them go and move on. Same thing with a lot of dealers. They're telling me, hey, I just got a watch, look, it's, people are asking 8,000, would you give me 4,500? I'm like, yeah, I'll sell it for 5.5k. It's good, there's money turning. And that's the other thing, is that if you come to a guy like me and you catch me on the right day where I just got the watch and I'm just looking to flip it, I rather make $200 more with an end customer. The end customer gets a crazy deal. They're gonna save 20-30% versus the cheapest one on the market, and vice versa. You know, I'm making a bit more money than I was thinking I was gonna make, and everything moves on. If I'm to wait and wait and wait, obviously I'm gonna have to make a bit more because the money invested into the watch is costing me money. I could have flipped other watches with the same thing. That's what people don't tell you. So if you go online and you look at those huge dealers that have 500, 1,000, 3,000 watches in inventory, unless they're in Japan and Japan wants to move their inventory quite quickly. If you're looking to North America or Europe, normally those margins are pretty steep on certain brands that are not Rolex or Omega or Patek or AP. Again, those four brands are really, like, let's say, more hotter, and margins are pretty small. But in general, when you're talking about anything else, margins tend to be a bit higher because it takes longer to sell. When it comes to selling a watch to a dealer, obviously we're going to try to buy it at the right price where we know we're going to make a small percentage. Again, it comes down to the same thing. If I'm buying a Longines like this one, I'm happy to make a few $100. It's box papers, it's, you know, just a few years old. Problem is, okay, a lot of dealers, authorized dealers, they're gonna sell you a watch at no discount whatsoever. Then you come to me and then I see the watch selling for 1,500 and you bought it for 4,000. What can I do about the market? I cannot do anything. I'm not a magician. If the watch is listed at $1,500 online, I'm not able to get $2,000. I'm not able to pay what you see them listed for online. I have to buy it a bit cheaper. There's fees. I have listed a few days ago 74,000 two-door with the black dial, type of military dial. That's what people call them. The person was like, I'll give you 2,400. I'm like, no, I'll let you have it for 22. I'm asking 26 online. I know I'm going to be negotiated anyway. Why would I take advantage of making an extra $200? And this is the way I work. Doesn't mean that every time you're going to call me and offer me a price, I'm I'm gonna lower the price. But in this case, I could do it, and it's gonna be a pleasure to do it. When it comes to selling us a watch, again, certain watches I know I'm gonna buy for X amount, I'm gonna add a couple of $100. I'm gonna be happy. It's gonna turn really quickly. If you're selling me a watch that's gonna take me, I don't know, 3 months, 6 months to sell, obviously I'm gonna try to make 20, 25%, you know, because it's just taking me so much longer to actually move. It doesn't make the watches less valuable, it just makes them less desirable because of the lack of information. And then that's what the two last videos were about. The lack of information actually creates less demand for Swiss brands, for Swiss models, certain ones in particular. For example, I have right here, I have an IWC flyback chronograph. This one, a model I think was only made for a couple of years, 2-3 years I believe. And you see, if we're looking at a Portuguese flyback, it's a very cool complication. I have the Carl Booker as well, that's also a flyback. Those watches are quite more expensive just because of their column wheel movements. They're also very well made and very well designed. When it comes to IWC lately, demand has decreased. Why? Because you don't see them resold in the secondary market by resellers, or especially stores. A lot of stores just plainly refuse to have them in stock. They refuse to buy them. And then when you don't see the brand in certain stores, you don't see a lot of it. Obviously, you think that the brand is bad. It's only a choice of the dealer. Again, the dealer is going to be the one who's going to be actually proposing you watches. If you don't see them within, you know, a certain platform, or a lot of people don't propose them to you, you're going to think the company is dead, which is not the case. They're still doing amazing things. And that's one of them. And I do appreciate the watch tremendously, but the demand is lower for many different factors. Giving you all that information is not something that I'm doing just for the blabber, okay? I don't care about what you think. The videos are pretty long, but there's a lot of information that's very important, okay? Me dealing with an IWC, or let's say a Chopard Alpine Eagle, it's one of the only ones in North America, by the way. There's not a lot of them here in North America online. What I'm trying to do is that I'm trying to inform people of what the watch industry is about. It's not only about 4 brands, 5 brands, or even less models within brands themselves. You have to be very educated in this industry, okay? A lot of people just buy Rolex and they tell me, hey, I'm on a list of 5 different dealers I'm looking for, whatever. But they're not even looking at the other brands. Why? Because it kind of became a cash game, and they want to do investments and all sorts of stuff. And I'm like, stop doing that. You know, if you don't like watches, you're only looking to put money into something, into some real estate or some commodities, it's just the wrong way to go about it. We had quite a few heated arguments. Some people were kind of, not liking what I talked about. But if you're watching 2 past videos, my whole idea is to actually tell you, hey, you know what? For the fact that a lot of people are not informed, for the fact that a lot of people don't want to buy certain brands right now, you're still getting a hell of a lot of a deal on certain watches that have been purchased. They lost their value, but what it means is that you're getting a much higher value for your dollar on a secondary market watch, and that gives you a lot of power to actually choose something that's actually better than a Rolex, better in certain ways than a Patek, and very sturdy watches, very quality oriented, and companies that have been there for 50, 100, 150 years. And I'm not going to name them all, but there's a lot of it on the market right now that's highly discounted, highly qualitative in terms of what you can buy for your dollar. I'm thinking about an Orange K2 that I just bought from a customer. It actually sells for 4.5K US, and that watch is actually retailing for roughly about 10,000 US. And we're talking about watches that are 1-2 years old. The K2 is a GMT watch, super cool. I bought it for myself. I'm enjoying the watch, super cool, very technical, but just for the fact that people don't know about it, they're doing B2C directly, so there's no distribution, there's no publicity, there's nothing surrounding the company. You have a watch that's much better than a Datejust 36, which that's, the basics of buying a watch, and you're going towards something that's very technical, very qualitative, and very long lasting in terms of, this company has developed their first movement over, I think, a span of 8 years, which very few companies can tell, hey, you know what, we took 8 years to develop a movement, and that's one of them. You have so many other brands out there that are doing amazing jobs at doing something well, but people don't recognize it, and then that's why you're gonna get a crazy deal. Is it easy to resell? Not necessarily, but you're getting a hell of a watch for the price of an entry-level mass-produced Rolex, and I have nothing against Rolex. I collect them. I even have a vintage Tudor on my wrist today. But when it comes to watches, knowledge is key. Like me or hate me, I'm gonna be myself all the way. A lot of people hate the fact that the videos are long or whatnot, or that I'm sharing too much information. But if you listen carefully, some people really get the message. And the comments actually show the fact that some people listen. Some people really understand what I mean by, hey, go from the fact that you never even considered buying a watch maybe 5 years ago, 2 years ago, 2 months ago. And now you're into a market where everyone pushes either cheap watches. You have a bunch of videos talking about watches that I mean, like 99.99% of people can't afford. Even myself, like if I want to buy a watch every now and then, I can afford them just because I'm a dealer. I'm able to actually be able to get somewhat of a deal compared to, the end customer. But otherwise, like, I could not be able to afford what I'm affording if I wasn't a dealer. And because the fact that I'm more and more attracted by other things than the mainstream stuff that you see online, I'm sharing that with you from my personal knowledge. I'm not just making it up. I'm not making stories. I don't need to lie to people. If you come in the store, I'm the same person. There's no stories, there's no whatever you want to call it. That's me, okay? Again, if you go to a dealer and he has only 3, 4, 5 brands that he's basically putting on a platter and everything else is just filling the, the inventory, it just tells you that they're not really interested by anything else but by the fact of making money. Obviously, I'm a business, but I'm also doing it from my perspective and my knowledge and my passion for watches, okay? The Hublot trend, that company doesn't use a quality movement for the price they're asking, and that becomes a bit of a problem. When those kind of watches come to me, I normally try to avoid them like the pest. Not because they're bad watches, just because they're overpriced and I'm not giving the quality to my customers. Again, I'm not trying to sell myself. I'm just telling you that, you know, I filter those pieces and you're getting a hell of a watch for the price that I'm giving you, and I'm trying to give you the best price possible versus the market. Best price possible versus the market doesn't mean I'm going to find the cheapest one and try to beat the price. I'm going to try to have boxes, papers, condition, or something extremely rare that you're never going to see again. Obviously, there's a markup, we're making money, but you're gonna find stuff that's a bit different than in any other stores. My last point, and that's very important, okay? I've seen that many times since I have a store. People go to dealers and buy a watch. Then, I don't know, 6 months, a year, 2 years later, they go back with a watch and they say, hey, are you buying it back? And if you have a dealer that actually doesn't buy back the watch that he sold to you, it means two things. Okay, means he made a home run with you when he sold you the watch. That means he made a huge amount of money and cannot buy it back because he's gonna make you such a low ball offer that you're gonna feel insulted. Okay, the second thing that it means is that he doesn't value the long-term relationship with the customer. Okay, and that to me is something that's actually the most important thing, because you guys are supporting me, you're trusting me to do a good job. If I'm doing a shitty job, you're gonna tell me. Maybe I'm gonna get a bad review, maybe, you know, you're gonna call me and give me shit, you know, or whatever. It happens, you know, over thousands and thousands of watches, it happens. What can we do? We can fix it, we can excuse ourselves, but at the end of the day, we wanna make it right to you, okay? That's when you see a dealer that actually sells you a watch, doesn't even check it, he just makes a bunch of money and then runs away from you or crosses the street when you're crossing path. It's not the best way of doing business. And for me, that's the heart of the business, is keeping people close. And I think that people are tired of being played around with. You are the ones encouraging us. You are the people who are actually even subscribing to the channel, helping, giving good positive advices. If you hate me, it's fine, I don't care. I'm giving you the best of the best that I can. If you want the best of the best, there are quite a few dealers out there that are doing it. I'm thinking of a few of them in Japan, I'm thinking of a few of them in the US, in Europe, there's a few of them in Canada as well. But honestly, no one's here to mess around with you. If you deal with the right person, if you feel like the guy is pushing a deal on you or trying to sell you with pressure, I'd run away from them. You know, you have your reputation, you have your name, you have to stand your ground, and that's what I'm doing. I myself, be yourself, guys, buy what you like. I'm not judging what you buy, I'm just informing you. In the next videos, we're gonna try to dive in more about what a watch collection should mean, what is it, how do you collect, and how did I get where I got here. And I think it's something very important for you guys to understand, that collecting to me has been a journey. Have I made mistakes? Will I ever make mistakes again? 100%. And it's not monetary mistakes, it's the fact that you're gonna regret what you bought, or you're gonna regret what you haven't bought, which is the biggest regret of all. And I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe if you like it. Again, be yourself, guys. I do enjoy doing those videos because I can actually give a voice to a lot of people that are actually not being covered right now in the industry. And I feel like there's so much more than a few brands and a few trends. And forget about the monetary value, it doesn't really matter. Quality to me is the most important thing. Thank you, guys. Enjoy. Have a great week.